Okay, hi. For this week's Raptors Weekly, it's me, William. I'm filling in for Andrew and Zarar. Today is Zarar's birthday, and Andrew is working late, so happy birthday and happy workday. So, filling in, we have Sean Woodley on from Raptors HQ and also podcast extraordinaire from Crossover Chronicles. And he's going to help us break down a very, very busy week in Raptors basketball. How are you, Sean?
I'm excellent, Will. Thanks for having me on. I'm delighted and surprised that you guys want to be on again after the first time, but I really appreciate it.
I'm like I'm like the Greg Steensma in terms of podcast hosts for Raptors Weekly.
And I've been
Like
called up from the Fort Wayne Mad Ants.
exactly. Like if I'm on the program, something bad has happened, and something bad's probably going to continue happening. No, the last time I had Sean on, he was on with Andrew, and because I have a really shitty sound card, it did not go well. So hopefully it will go well this time, and because we have a ton to get to, starting with the Raptors' biggest signing in free agent history, DeMarre
Mhm.
Carroll, who got inked to a 4-year, $60 million contract. None of the deals are signed until the free agent moratorium is lifted, but the Raptors have come to an agreement with DeMarre Carroll. Sean, what do you think about this move?
I couldn't love it anymore, I don't think. I think the price at 15 million a year is fine. Once the cap goes up in a couple of years, that's not going to seem like anything. And it could even seem like a steal at that price in the last couple of years of his deal. I know people are sort of worried about his age. He's going to be 29 next year, but I mean, if you look at the amount of minutes he's played less than 7,000 minutes in his career. He's only played in 316 games. Like people forget that he's sort of a late bloomer and didn't really get a whole lot of playing time until the last couple of years. So I don't think the age is a super big issue. It's not like Amir Johnson, who we'll talk about later. It's not like him, with at 28 playing 10 seasons and pretty steady minutes the entire time. So I'm not worried about the price. I'm not worried about his age. I could not love it more.
Yeah, like you said, I know it sounds like a daunting number. But in year one, it's gonna be 22% of the cap. Year two, it'll be 17%, and year three will be 14% when the cap is like $108 million. So
Hmm.
that's a pretty solid, a pretty fair price to pay for someone who A fits a lot of the Raptors' needs, and B is a very productive player. And 2-3 years down the line, he's going to be what, the third or fourth option. In that time, like at that time, this is a very fair deal. So it's a slight, expensive for the first year, but like you said, the cap goes up, price comes down. Yeah, I think he fits a lot of needs. Like
Hmm.
the Raptors had horrible, horrible defense last year, and not all of that was Terrence Ross, but he definitely didn't help because he was undersized, and I mean, I don't know. I don't want to shit on Terrence Ross that much, but really, he was just not. He's just not a good defender. And DeMarre Carroll is an excellent wing defender. I wouldn't necessarily say he's shut down in the way that someone like Kawhi Leonard is, but
Hmm.
he's very good. He defends his position really well. He is he's able to guard in multiple positions, so you can stick him on a two guard, maybe even a one, and he can also play some minutes at backup power forward if you need
Hmm.
him to. And he's a good 3 point shooter. Like the last 2 seasons, he shot 39%. Um, and I mean, mostly he's a catch and shoot kind of guy, but that's kind of what you really want. I mean, that's the really popular thing right now in the NBA is to have a 3 and D guy, and DeMarre Carroll is one of the premier 3 and D guys, and that's why he got signed to this deal.
Yeah, I feel like he answers like a whole bunch of questions that the Raptors had and that were really exposed in the playoffs. Like you mentioned the 3 point shooting, he's a good catch and shoot guy. I mean, Terrence Ross, again, don't want to, rag on him too much, but he was so inconsistent this year. The playoffs the last couple of years have just been a mess for him. And to have a guy that can reliably hit 40% of his threes is, really, really exciting. And, it's the defense was so bad last year, and you had Grievous Vasquez and Lou Williams and Kyle Lowry and Terrence Ross. It was just such a bad stable of perimeter defenders. I think Carroll injecting his defense is going to be absolutely huge. And then, I mean, this is like the little things he brings too, like the toughness he's going to bring. Like Terrence Ross was not tough last year.
Terrence Ross is soft. We could
Yeah,
just say it.
he's soft. He drifts in and out of effort. I mean, DeMarre Carroll guarded LeBron James on one leg in the playoffs. I mean, I don't think any Raptors last year you could have pictured doing that. So it's nice to have him for that. And I mean, the little things too, like he's not afraid to make the extra pass. He played with Atlanta last year, and maybe he doesn't necessarily mean that the Raptors can go to some, beautiful motion offense, but the little things like that where he's not going to take stupid shots and he's conditioned to always make the extra pass to make the smart play and the smart read. I think that's going to go a really long way for a team that sort of lacked a high basketball IQ last year.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's also the part of the concern with DeMarre Carroll, right? Because I think Trey Kirby of the Starters pointed this out on Twitter. DeMarre Carroll, like 94% of his three-pointers last year were assisted.
Mm.
94%. So that is an extraordinarily high number. And the Raptors, meanwhile, have the third lowest assist rate as a team in terms of percentage of baskets that are assisted last season. So
Mm-hmm.
he's coming. It's a night and day in terms of systems, right? And I guess the down. I mean, if you're pessimistic, you might say, okay, DeMarre Carroll might not be as productive because he's not in the same system. But if you're optimistic, you can hope that DeMarre Carroll can bring some of that system over because even though the Raptors' offense was pretty efficient last year in terms of scoring, we were top five, but there was easy ways to stop that offense. And when things got, you know, tight and in playoff games and late in games, execution was not necessarily there. There was a lot of ISO ball and stuff. So hopefully DeMarre Carroll, like you said, could bring some of that extra pass, higher IQ brand of basketball to the Raptors, right? So
Yeah, and I think like with Lowry, we know how messed up he was at the end of the year with his back or whatever was going on with him. I think he's going to be better next year. I think he's going to be able to, drive and dish a lot more with a lot more regularity. And we saw with DeRozan down the stretch too. I don't know if this is something he's adding to his game or if it was just something that he was doing because Lowry was so inhibited. But like DeRozan showed that he can be a really good playmaker when he's driving because he attracts extra defenders when he's going to the basket, and he's a pretty good passer. So I think maybe if a couple things here and there from last year down the stretch can be sort of translated over, maybe there's less of a reliance on the ISO ball when they know there's a guy like Carroll out there who can actually hit a catch and shoot three with consistency. So yeah, I'm hopeful that the offense will be a little bit more, appeasing, pleasing to watch next year because it was tough to watch at times last year where Lou Williams is pulling up for 30-foot threes and whatnot. So I think he's going to go bring a lot to just improving the aesthetics of everything.
So on the interviews, Carroll said that he's hoping to embrace a little bit bigger of a role in here in
Mm-hmm.
Toronto, and I think he will need to. Toronto's offense, we don't have the same offensive talent as Atlanta does. So he talked about being, wanting to become a slasher and, I'm sorry, not become a slasher, but do more slashing. And as compared to Terrence Ross, like Ross couldn't do anything off the dribble, right? His one move was step in, take a long two that, he hit at an okay rate, but I mean, that's realistically not something that you necessarily want. You wanted him to make a play, maybe attack the basket. Ross never shot free throws. Carroll doesn't shoot a lot of free throws either, but at least he has a driving ability that we kind of saw in the playoffs, especially in the Brooklyn series. DeMarre Carroll was undoubtedly the best Hawk in that series.
Mm-hmm.
He like they would crowd Corver and they would try to run DeMarre off the 3-point line, and he would have enough of an in-between game to actually get all the way to the basket and force more rotations on the defense. And the more rotations forced on defense, and the smarter of a passer that you have on your team, I think that's what leads to some of those very, very beautiful offensive sets that you see in Atlanta and Golden State and San Antonio. So yeah, it's good.
Yeah,
It's good.
I
It's good
agree for
signing.
sure.
Yeah. And you know what? Just one last thing on DeMarre Carroll. He's just he fills a need for the Raptors that has been there for so many years. Like we've tried guys like Mikael Petrus, Terrence Ross, Landry Fields to fill this 3-and-D role, and we just haven't had a guy who can actually do that for one reason or the other.
Mm-hmm.
And like the last guy I remember being able to do something like this was like Anthony Parker,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I'd say DeMarre Carroll is a bigger, more effective version of Anthony Parker. So that's very valuable.
Yeah, I think it's a good comparison. I have no complaints about DeMarre Carroll. He's very, very expensive glue, but it's really necessary, and I think he's going to do a lot for them.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, if you want to make some noise in the Eastern Conference, I mean, I think fans next year will be pretty happy with just one playoffs round win. but which is kind of sad. But I mean, like, even if you get to round 2, you don't want to get completely demolished, right? So, yeah, you're gonna need a guy like DeMarre to check, wing scores, and there's a lot of decent wing scores in the East. I mean, obviously LeBron, but depending on the Knicks, I mean, if they get good next year, Carmelo. So
There's like 8 guys on the Bucks.
yeah, right.
Yeah.
You could really use. Yeah, exactly. So it's a good signing, and yeah, kudos to Masai. It's a huge get.
Yeah, just one last thing. I mean, last summer they sort of tried to, in a response to what Joe Johnson did in the Nets series. I think they tried with James Johnson to sort of get that wing stopper, but Johnson has no offensive game. I think Carroll is just Johnson, but a little smarter, and he has an offensive game. So, like we've said, I don't think there's any downside to this move.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, the Raptors also made another signing. This one much less exciting than DeMarre Carroll. It is Bismack Biyombo. The Raptors signed him to a 2-year, $6 million deal. We're talking about a 22-year-old center who's going to be 23 next year when the season starts. He was picked 7th overall in 2011, and he spent 4 seasons with the Charlotte Hornets / Bobcats. I mean, I think this is a low risk deal that he fits a need. What do you think about this, Sean?
I love it. I mean, why the hell not? It's 2 years. It's 6 million. I guess it's the rumor is that it's going to be with the mini mid level, so it won't count against the cap. I mean, he's 22. Why not? I mean, last year the defense, the interior defense was so bad last year, and a lot of that is because of the load they had to deal with because no one could stop anybody from penetrating. But at the same time, Amir Johnson, as much as we love him, was never a great rim protector, more of just a good team defense guy. JV is still learning the whole verticality thing, and I think he's going to get better, but he's not Biyombo in terms of his ability to block shots. I mean, Biyombo blocks 3 shots per 36 minutes. That's pretty solid, and he last year there's this stat here that I dug up. Last year they were the second worst playoff team in terms of field goal percentage inside 6 feet. I think Biyombo is going to help turn that around a lot. And if you have a defensive anchor for your second unit, why the hell not? I think it makes a ton of sense.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, he fits a lot of needs. Like he's mostly you can expect just strong rebounding
Mm-hmm.
and rim protection, and those are two things that the Raptors could really use. I think the Raptors ranked 25th in defensive rating and defensive rebounding percentage. So yeah, grabbing Biyombo at only $3 million a year without actually cutting into cap room is a tremendous deal. I'm not really sure why no one else picked up on Biyombo. I mean, I think we're overselling. Well, I think we're understating a little bit how bad he is on offense. Like
Oh, he's a train wreck.
he's
Yeah.
got horrible hands. He's not a finisher. He can't really shoot. He's a bad free throw shooter. He's about 50%. And I mean, he can catch pick and roll lobs and putbacks, and I guess he's a good offensive rebounder too. So, but yeah, yeah, for this team in terms of what the Raptors need, Bismack fits a lot of them. He's cheap, and I don't know if the 23. Like, do you feel like he has upside still?
I mean, I don't know if that. Yeah, I don't think he's gonna suddenly become some sort of offensive star. I think, I don't know who it was that I was reading yesterday. Someone tweeted it out that people in Charlotte had compared Biyombo to DeAndre Jordan, which I don't think he has that upside. There's not a chance. But if he can, I think he can probably get a little smarter defensively. Maybe he can, learn to time things a little bit better. I don't know. I haven't seen a ton of Biyombo to be honest, because the Charlotte Hornets aren't really a team that I love to, ingest. But yeah, I don't think he's going to become some sort of great offensive player, but that's totally fine for what they're paying him. And if he's 22 and does become better, that's just gravy.
Mhm. And I think the fact that he's mobile and able to has the size to play center and the
Mm-hmm.
instincts and the know without how to play center, I think that's going to be huge. Because Dwayne Casey, as we know, loves to have his bigs come up high, trap and hedge and recover. And
Mm-hmm.
while last season that clearly didn't work with the personnel that we had, at least this summer you could draw a straight line between the 3 moves that have been made. I guess not the Ridnour trade, but Delon Wright, DeMarre Carroll, and Bismack Biyombo, they all profile as very good defensive players,
Mm-hmm.
and not just that, but they have good size to play their position, and also have the mobility to do so. And I mean, I don't necessarily think that Masai should try too much to build a Casey ball team, but I mean, if Casey is not willing to change the system, then at least bring some pieces that would fit ideally in the system. And I think, yeah, with Biyombo, like you can, for example, you can go small, and put three wings out there with a point guard, and then have Biyombo out there. It's a little bit more palatable than when you have Patrick Patterson playing five, or when you have Jonas Valanciunas playing five in that sense, because Biyombo at least is big enough and a good enough of a rebounder and quick enough that he can actually pull off some of this, this kind of offense. So, or
Yeah.
this kind of defense. So, yeah,
And it's not like the Raptors are typically a team that throws it inside to their bigs a lot. So
right,
like
yeah,
it's not like you're missing out on anything with him offensively. Like I again, I don't see anything wrong with the move. It's a depth move. It shouldn't be something that we, agonize over and go too deep into because again, he's probably going to play what 15 to 20 minutes a night, and I
yeah,
think he'll do a lot with those minutes because if there's anything that the Raptors were last year, it was terrible defensively. So there's no downside to this, I don't think.
yeah. I agree. Good move, good move. And hey, if he works out, the second year, yeah, I don't know. It's good. The 2 years at 6 million is nice because you're getting guys like, no offense to Aaron Baines. I'm very big on Aaron Baines, but
Mm-hmm.
he's kind of undersized for a center. He's not very athletic. And he got what, like 3 years, $20 million,
Yeah.
right? So like I
The
mean, I
Spurs
love
money.
Aaron Baines, but Bismack Biyombo is probably just as effective as Aaron Baines, maybe in slightly different ways, but yeah, and it's like night and day with these deals. So yeah, good value signing for Masai. And yeah, the Raptors made a third move this week, as I hinted earlier. They traded for the contract of Luke Ridnour. They dealt the rights to Tomislav Zubcic because you have to deal someone in return to make a deal work. So rest in peace, Tomislav. He's like 35 years old now. We drafted him like 10 years ago. So yeah, Ridnour has been traded four times in basically 2 weeks. The reason for that is because he has a non-guaranteed deal worth $2.6 million, and for next season, and it expires July 11th. But in the meantime, it still works as this fake sort of pseudo contract that you can move around. So the Thunder traded him to the Raptors so that they can get a trade exception that it could last longer, that lasts a whole year instead of just till July 11th, so they can make a deal, somewhere down the line. And also, the Raptors got a small bit of money for making this deal work. And in the meantime, Ridnour is probably just a trade chip, kind of a very, very minor trade chip to a team that's maybe capped out and they want to sign somebody. You can sign, I don't know, really sign and trade with a Lou Will thing that we might talk about later. So yeah, do you think there's any chance Ridnour plays on this team?
I mean, I wouldn't hate it because as much as I want to see DeLon Wright, get most of the work at the backup point guard spot, he's a rookie, so you don't really know how he's going to adjust. I think he'll probably adjust just fine because he's 23 and is sort of more developed than the rest of the rookies coming in. But I mean, if you have Ridnour as your third point guard, you could do worse as a guy to step in as an insurance thing if Wright struggles or if Lowry gets hurt or banged up or whatever. Yeah, and then if worst case you try to use his 2.75 million or whatever it is to try to match salaries in a trade if you want to try to upgrade somewhere else on the roster, and then if you can't, you just waive him. So yeah, like I wouldn't hate it if he's there, but I also don't mind the use that he could have in trying to upgrade elsewhere.
Yeah. Um, yeah, it's hilarious. Do you think Ridnour's agent like told him that he's gonna be traded this many times? Like, do you think he warned him like, look, Luke, don't get your hopes up. Don't look for condos in downtown Toronto. This is probably not where you're gonna be playing next year.
Is he just at like a hotel in the middle of like I don't know what's a central state like Missouri and just waiting so he doesn't have to go super far to anywhere he ends up landing?
Yeah, I mean it's yeah, I guess
Just go to the
it's
most central
logistically
location
feasible.
possible, and we'll let you know where to go at the end of the offseason.
Poor guy, poor guy. Yeah, Cool Hand Luke. Yeah, he's a good, cool nickname. Okay, so I guess that wraps up the three Raptors transactions for this week. We're gonna take a quick break, and then we're gonna come back with rumors.
Always fun.
Yes. All right, and we're back for our second segment. It is the rumor roundup. It's free agency, so there are rumors flying every which way. And the biggest one of all surrounding the Raptors it wasn't technically a rumor. The Raptors had a meeting with free agent LaMarcus Aldridge, who eventually signed with the Spurs after meeting with about 10 teams. Um, Sean, what do you think of this Raptors meeting with Aldridge?
I don't think it can be seen as anything but a positive. I mean, I had a glimmer of hope that he might want to come to the Raptors just because of the whole factor that the East is so much easier to win in than the West. I feel like if Aldridge came to the Raptors, they'd immediately be a conference final contender. And that's just something, even with the Spurs and that loaded team, there's no guarantees that they're going to make it out of the second round because who knows? They might get matched up with Golden State or Oklahoma City or maybe Tim Duncan. I know he's a robot, but maybe this is the year where he starts to wear down. Who knows?
How
So
dare you?
I thought there was always a chance maybe that he might want to come east, and the Knicks didn't really offer the chance to win. That was the thing that was holding on to hope for me. But I just think it's awesome that a guy of his ilk even considered for a second to Toronto enough to take a meeting with them. I think it can only mean good things going forward, and I think it's pretty clear that the recent culture change that's sort of come around the team in the last couple of years, with a couple of years of modest success and Masai Ujiri coming back and having some attitude. I think it's actually starting to get recognized around the league, and I think it can only be good going forward.
Hmm. You know what? I agree with you, but I'm just gonna play devil's advocate to make for better radio. Um, I mean, LaMarcus took on like 2 meetings with the Lakers, and he met with the Knicks. I mean, it seemed like LaMarcus Aldridge just wanted to hear everybody out and maybe indulge in the free agency process and have people take him out to dinner. I think he had like 8 dinners a night in the last like 3 days, so he might have gained like 15 pounds from this
So
whole
much steak,
experience.
that guy is not going to take a crap for a week.
Yeah, this guy basically just ate a whole cow in 3 days. So I don't know. I don't know necessarily if this is like a super big sign of the Raptors are, able to sit at the big boys table now. Maybe it's just LaMarcus Aldridge, wanting to have a lot of stakes. But yeah, I don't actually believe that though because yeah, I wrote the post when the rumor came or the report came out that the Raptors are going to meet with them, and I got super excited. And like you said, the only chance that the Raptors had was if LaMarcus Aldridge wanted to come east and try to compete through a much easier conference.
Mm-hmm.
LaMarcus is like obviously a superstar or whatever, but he's never gotten out of the first or out of the second round. And I think depending on the matchups, I think the Raptors with LaMarcus Aldridge with another addition probably would have made it to the conference finals and then eventually lost to the Cavs. So yeah, the Cavs are too good.
Yep.
So yeah, I don't know. I mean, I like that the Masai is willing to swing big. Like, when was the last time we were in on a major free agent?
Let alone like three in one day. Like
Yeah,
that is what got me. The Wes Matthews thing on top of the Aldridge meeting and the DeMarre Carroll signing was what really, stuck out to me. So I think it's maybe it was LaMarcus wanting to wine and dine and get pandered on, but I think it was he canceled on the Knicks, so maybe that's what kills that theory anyway. Because if he wanted to be wined and dined, why would you not go out with the Knicks and Phil Jackson? He canceled on them, so I I think it's really exciting, and maybe it doesn't mean that they're going to get a big free agent in the next couple of years, but I think that it's going to grow in people's minds that Toronto might be a destination to consider.
yeah, for sure. Actually, yeah. So LaMarcus on the Spurs. I mean, this was a 55-win team that kept all the major pieces except for Splitter, who they had to trade to Atlanta to make this deal happen.
Mhm.
Do you think the Spurs with LaMarcus Aldridge are the favorite in the West?
I would still go with Golden State. I think we are undervaluing how amazing that team was this year and how, throughout the playoffs, they almost never played up to that crazy level they played to in the regular season, except for maybe the last 3 games of the finals. Like they struggled here and there. I mean, New Orleans gave them more of a challenge, I think, than most people thought, and they still pulled that one out pretty easily. Memphis was pretty good, but they pulled that one out. Houston gave them a challenge for a couple games. They pulled that out. I don't think we're giving the Warriors enough credit, if that's possible, about how good they were this year. And for us to say the Spurs are automatically the favorite because they had LaMarcus Aldridge, I don't think that's entirely fair.
Yeah. Yeah, the thing is, I don't think the Warriors could go small against the Spurs. Like
No, that's
LaMarcus is
fair.
such a load in the post that either Draymond's gonna pick up foul trouble or they're gonna have to keep Andrew Bogut on the floor and it makes him a little bit less deadly. But yeah, I don't know. I'd say the Spurs with LaMarcus are neck and neck with the Warriors. Then again, the scary thing about the Warriors is that like they're all young. Like give them another year together, and they're all on the upswing of their careers, except by maybe Bogut and Iguodala. I mean, yeah, they were remarkably healthy. I think that's probably the luckiest part about their whole run. But I mean, geez, that team is really young. Yeah, I'd say Spurs are probably on par. I mean, what about OKC? You think like with the healthy
I
Durant?
Yeah, I think they're right in the mix too, because I think we forget too they made some really really good moves at the trade deadline that never really got to play all together, and I think once they're healthy, if Durant gets back, which I really hope he does, I think they're right in the mix there with those three teams. And I don't think Memphis is far off either, because I really, really like what they did with Brandon Wright, sorry, and adding Matt Barnes as well. I think they're going to be better next year, and I think that's the four teams that are going to be the top four in the West next year.
Yeah. Yeah, and you know what? Then this discussion right here is exactly why LaMarcus Aldridge should have signed with the Raptors. I mean, do
Exactly.
you really want to play these teams? There's a very good chance you face the Spurs in round two or the Warriors in round two. I mean, I guess now he's on the Spurs or like the Grizzlies. Like I don't know. Just come out east. It's nice. You know, Toronto's nice. We'll
Could
get
say
you
the
into the
same
All
thing
Star
about
game.
Wes Matthews too.
That's right. Yeah. You know what? That's the second time you've tried to segue into this. So let's do it. Yeah, Wes Matthews. Apparently the Raptors offered him something like 12, 13 million per year for 4 years, and eventually he signed with the Mavericks. I think something like 454. I'm not entirely sure because apparently some of his salary might be going to DeAndre Jordan's salary, but I have no idea. Yeah, the Raptors. I mean, the interesting thing here is this came after the DeMarre Carroll thing,
Mhm.
and so when reports came out about the Raptors chasing Wes Matthews, it was like, oh my God, what's the future there for DeRozan? But then apparently DeRozan was in this pitch too, and apparently the idea was that they were going to play small ball with DeMarre Carroll at the 4, Wes Matthews at 2, and DeMar DeRozan at 3. Um, well, I mean, okay, I want your thoughts on Wes Matthews first, and then second, let's talk about the weird small ball idea.
Well, yeah. So I love Wes Matthews. I always really liked him. Obviously, the Achilles is a big red flag right now, but I can't help but be a little optimistic with him because we've already seen video of him shooting, and I don't know. I think it's something. Maybe it's a bias thing where I just really like him, so I think he might have the ability to get back. Maybe that's completely wrong and
Hmm.
medically insane, but I mean, he's 28. He's not like he's Kobe tearing his Achilles at 35. It's a little different. So I maybe he won't get back to 100%, but I think Wes Matthews at 90, 95% is pretty damn good as well. And I would have paid him what Dallas did. I think he's worth 13, 14. I don't think he's worth a million, trillion, bazillion dollars like the Kings wanted to throw at him, but I really, really like Wes Matthews.
Yeah, yeah. If he were healthy, I think he probably gets 60 million over 4 years.
Hmm.
Like from I don't know, but yeah, like you said, the Achilles is a very I don't know. I mean, the chances are the odds are not in his favor that he comes back fully healthy because a report done by some American medical journal looked at 18 years or 18 players over the span of like 20 years of NBA basketball and looked at how before and after effects on after an Achilles injury and like the PR drop was like 4.6 on average. Like that's
Really?
huge. That's the difference
Yeah.
between a superstar and or superstar and a star or a star and a rotation player.
Hmm.
And Wes Matthews was about I would say I think it was around 17, 18. If you drop him down to like 13 or 14, like that is I don't know, that's a lot of money to pay. But if he were healthy, if he is healthy, I think honestly Dallas almost got him at a bargain because he does so many things well. He's great in the locker room and stuff. So yeah, I'm happy, and I want Wes Matthews, like you said, he's a very likable guy. He's really hardworking, and he's amicable. So all the best to Wes.
Hmm.
But the Raptors' idea of playing small ball with three wings, personally, I thought that the idea isn't that crazy. I don't know necessarily we have the personnel to play it, even if we had gotten Wes Matthews, because I am very worried about Jonas Valanciunas centering that kind of lineup where he has to
Hmm.
make multiple reads and rotate over to protect the basket. I don't think JB has the instincts to do that. I think picks up foul trouble, and then we have I don't know Bismack Biyombo in there instead of him. in which case we have a downgrade in offense, which then we should not have gone to small ball in the first place. So
Mhm.
yeah, but I mean, I think it's interesting. What do you think?
I was sort of in love with the idea to start. I mean, I think Carroll is more than capable of playing the four because if you look at the Eastern Conference, outside of Kevin Love and Al Jefferson, are there really any like huge mauling post scorers at the power forward spot? Like, not really. So I think you could have gotten by with Carroll against a lot of teams as your four. And I don't even think DeMar DeRozan would be a bad choice to play at the four because I think in the playoffs, if you were looking at who was defending Paul Pierce when he was playing the four, DeMar did the best job.
Yeah,
And I think DeMar is a good enough defender. He's sort of an underrated defender, I think. I think he would have passed as a four defensively and offensively. If you can get him in the corner shooting threes and stretching the floor a little bit, because he can hit a corner three. He
hmm
doesn't do it a lot, but he can do it. He can't hit anything above the break, but I had no problem with the idea of having Wes, DeMare, and DeMar as your 2, 3, 4, and you figure out where those guys slot into those spots over the course of the season while you refine it.
yeah, yeah. That's the thing. Yeah, I think I'm of the same belief. It's just the Jonas part really worried me
Yeah,
in
yeah.
the whole um idea of it all. And DeMarre Carroll used to play four. Like he played some four in Utah. He played it in
Mhm.
college. He slimmed down so that he could play when he played with the Hawks. And I think he's best suited to play the three. But I don't know, for 15, 20 minutes a game, if you wanted to put DeMarre Carroll at the four, it's not that terrible of an idea. And yeah, I think it would have been an easier way to limit some of DeRozan's minutes as well. Like, I
Mhm.
mean, we're talking about a guy who plays like 38 minutes a game for the last 3 or 4 seasons, and it had actually been quite amazing that he never got injured despite that high of a workload till last season, and then he came back and then continued working that kind of workload. So, if you had three wings that you could confidently put out there that could play any of the positions 2 through 4, well, 2 through 3/4. I don't know if Wes Matthews could play four. I mean, he's got bulk, but he's kind of short. But I
Yeah.
don't know. Yeah, this is the way the league is going, and I don't think it was that crazy of an idea. I just think that Jonas would have been bad for the system. But anyway, it's water under the bridge. Wes Matthews is gone. Have fun in Dallas. Chandler Parsons and Dirk and DeAndre and whoever else plays on that team, because I have no idea who plays on the rest of that team. But Rick Carlisle is a goddamn magician, and I'm sure you'll pick up some random dude like Landry Fields, fix this left-handed shot, and then you never know. He's going to start playing point guard. Seriously, Rick Carlisle is a genius. So
Landry Fields point guard on the 68 win Mavs.
yeah, and you know what? Grab Jeremy Lin as well. I actually, you know what? I want the Raptors to grab Jeremy Lin because I think
Really?
I do. Uh, yeah, well, we'll just talk about that, I guess. Yeah, I mean, there's no reports
Yeah.
of it out there. Jeremy Lin's like linked to, I don't know, 6 or 7 teams or whatever. But I think if the Raptors can grab him at below the mid level, I think that is a pretty solid addition because then you can let Lou Williams walk, who I think Lou Williams is he might be a little bit too expensive for the
Mhm.
Raptors. And so if Jeremy Lin can come in, he can play the one and the two. He's not a good defender, but he can operate a pick and roll. He's a pretty good 3-point shooter. He can slash and drive and get to the basket. Um, I don't know. I think yeah, Jeremy Lin would be a nice addition, and hopefully he doesn't take less money to go to a contender because why would he? He hasn't made any money in his career yet, so like real money. So yeah, come take the Raptors money, Jeremy Lin, please.
Yeah, what's your stance on Lou? Because I now that they've gone with this defensive focus in the offseason and brought in all these defensively minded guys, I actually don't like I was never a Lou guy all year. I was kind of the only person, one of the only people that was just like get him off the floor. He's out there way too much. I couldn't stand watching him. And I don't hate the idea of bringing him back now because they've gone so defense heavy with Carroll and Wright and Biyombo that he might be a really good guy to have run your offense on your second unit. And like we've mentioned, if Wright sort of falters as the backup point guard right away, Lou can play some point guard too. So I don't know. I was against Lou Williams coming back, but I think if they can re-sign him to something reasonable, because I don't think there's a crazy market for him right now. I mean, I feel like he would have been scooped up by now if there was a huge appetite for a guy like that. So maybe they can get him for a little less, and I wouldn't totally hate it as much as I thought I would at the start of the offseason.
Yeah, I agree, especially with the market thing. I think I tweeted out last yesterday, just random thoughts on Twitter, but yeah, the 5 teams interested in Lou that were reported were the Kings, Lakers, Nets, Knicks, and Heat, and The Kings got Rondo and Bellinelli, so I doubt that they would want to splurge for Will Lou or Lou Will after that.
Will do.
Splurge on Will Lou for sure, please. I can play 4-on-5 offense. I can make a layup. That will score 60 points a game. Yeah. Do nothing else, by the way. Um, the Lakers they drafted D'Angelo Russell. The Nets they're capped out after they signed Thaddeus Young, and actually they were capped out anyway.
And
Um,
they have like 18 point guards.
that's right. Yeah, they have
Yeah.
so many point guards. So forget that. And the Knicks they got Aaron Aflalo. Um, and the Heat they re-signed Wade. So I think Lou Williams was one of the many backup plans. I think probably plan C behind Monte Ellis, who was also linked to the Heat. But whatever, Dwayne Wade re-signed. So yeah, I mean if the market's drying up for Lou Will and his price comes down because of it, I wouldn't mind a return. Like you said, we do have a lot more defenders on the roster now. And Lou isn't that bad of a defender. He's just small. You
Mhm.
can only play him at 1 or 2, and that was my biggest worry with him was bring Lou back probably would have cost big money before the market kind of shriveled up on him, and we already have so many resources tied up at the 1 and the 2. I mean, before DeMarre Carroll came, DeRozan, and Lowry were our two most expensive players, and so
Mhm.
do we really want to reinforce that? Like you might want to spread the money around, but yeah, I mean, if we get Lou again, like if we get him around the mid-level for 2 or 3 years, maybe third year as a team option, that's not a bad deal for Lou Williams, and he could, right now the bench went from like very very capable of scoring lots of points to I have no idea how that bench is going to score points, right? Because you have Biyombo out there who's, I mean, I don't know, he's probably as big of a mine as Tyler Hansbrough is,
Mhm.
except he doesn't draw as many fouls. Patrick Patterson, whatever, but now he doesn't really have a point guard to play with him,
And
so
he might have to start too.
he might have to start as well. So
Mhm.
yeah, I mean that's why there was a rumor out there that Will Bynum was, the Raptors are interested in Will Bynum. I I'm sure Will Bynum's a nice guy. He seems like a high character guy. He's a veteran, played a lot of years in Detroit, but yeah, he's very small. Like he's sub 6 foot, and we don't need another tiny point guard. So
I would agree with that for sure.
and he
I
can't
don't
really shoot.
think. Yeah, I mean, it's again, it would just be what Luke Ridnour would be if he stuck around. He'd be that third point guard insurance, which I think there are different options other than Will Bynum that you can go with. I mean, if you have to settle for him, whatever, he's your third point guard. But yeah, I don't know. It doesn't really move the needle for me.
Yeah. All right. Any other like random trade ideas that you want to throw out there before we
Um,
toss it to a third segment?
yeah. Do you want to go to the third segment and then we can get into the cap room they have, and then we'll talk about maybe other moves they can make? Or
Okay. Yeah. Perfect.
cool.
All right. So yeah, we're gonna take another quick break, and we'll come back with segment 3. Okay. Welcome back to segment 3. In this one, we're gonna be moving forward and looking back. So, first moving forward, what's the next move for Masai Ujiri? He still has about 9 million in cap room. If that's assuming that they release all their other cap holds and they waive Ridnour's contract as well. So that's 9 million that he still has to address some of the other issues on this team. And there are some other issues, and I would say the biggest one right now is power forward. Who's going to play that? So, Sean, what do you see the rest of the offseason looking like for Masai?
Um, I guess we sort of touched on this in the last when we were talking about DeMarre Carroll and how he has the ability to play the four. I think because he can play the four, it doesn't really paint Ujiri into a corner where he has to target one specific kind of player or one position. I think he can target a power forward to either come in to be the starter or back up Patrick Patterson and move him to the starting spot. And then, or you can, target a three, maybe a good defensive three or someone who's a little longer, and you can push Carroll to the four, and you don't lose a whole bunch defensively. So I think he's got a lot of options, and it's nice that Carroll's versatility allows him to target, different sorts of positions. And I think Patterson's ability to start, if you had to, I don't think he's necessarily the greatest choice to be a starter at the four, but I think having him there also, beefs up the amount of different things they can do.
Yeah, I'd say, I mean, they probably need to grab one more guy that at least has like sort of traditional power forward slash center type size.
Hmm.
Because if the front court as it is kind of small, I don't mind going small with the power forward position. It's just kind of where the league is going, and also because the league is going that way, you lose less on defense if you do that. And I could see James Johnson playing some backup four, which is probably where he's best suited. He can use that speed, that line drive, post up ability that he has. That
Hmm.
he's able to get to the basket against some bigger fours. He can finish over the top of people. So yeah, power forward. I mean, it's kind of the most obvious spot on the roster, but yeah, I mean, I like you said, I think addressing the wing would also be pretty useful. One guy I like out there, maybe as the minimum or slightly more than the minimum, is Justin Holiday from the Golden
Hmm.
State Warriors. He didn't play a lot of minutes, obviously, because that wing rotation is insane. But last season he played in a couple games when Klay Thompson got hurt and when Andre Iguodala was sitting out and stuff because they're resting him. Yeah, Justin Holiday, he has a long track record of defending. He is about 6'6". I mean, I don't know. I mean, I think that's a solid addition. I mean, he can maybe hit a three-pointer consistently. We're dumpster diving kind of, but I wouldn't mind adding another wing to the rotation at least. To spell DeRozan a little bit and also just to give him some depth there. So
I was a little bit disappointed yesterday when it came down that Kyle LaQuinn had signed with the Knicks, or there was a sign and trade sending him to the Knicks, because I thought he would have been a perfect fit as the new four, either starting or backing up Patterson. I guess you could switch that back and forth based on who you're playing, but I really really liked O'Quinn, and I thought he was sort of underused there in Orlando, and I'm sort of bummed he didn't end up with the Raptors. I thought he was a guy that they could have had. I mean, 4 million a year for 4 years. I think that's pretty reasonable for a guy who has always had pretty good per 36 numbers and things like that, and just never really got a chance to be a regular contributor. I don't know. What? Who else would you pinpoint as a guy to maybe to bring that sort of size that you're talking about?
I would say, just off the top of my head, I mean, again, I think we're dumpster diving a little bit too hard considering they still do have some cap room. But
Uh-huh.
yeah, if we're talking about like maybe we trade for Taj Gibson. It's sort of been proposed a couple times, but just hypothetically not reported. I'm
Hmm.
not even sure if Chicago would want to strengthen Toronto by trading Taj, but they do have a lot of, they have a logjam in the front court, and Taj is not necessarily happy with his position, and he's always wanted to be a starter. He can have that role here in Toronto. Um, he's would fit right in with that defensive grit, and I think he would make up for a lot of the loss of DeMar or of Amir Johnson on
Hmm.
defense. Um, so if something like Ross and some filler, I guess not even filler, because yeah, I guess Chicago's like over the luxury tax.
Hmm.
Maybe I think they're pretty close to luxury tax after re-signing um, Dunleavy and Butler. So maybe they have some financial incentive to do that if we can ship out like a Terrence Ross and not too much else, and we can get Taj on the cheap. This is the last year of Taj's deal. He's only earning 8 mil. Like that would be an ideal fit, but I think that's aiming a little bit. That's probably a little bit too pie in the sky. David West would have been a nice addition too, but it seems like David West is hell bent on sacrificing over $10 million in salary so that he can chase the championship. In which case, all kudos to the man. I think that's the kind of dedication to winning that I think people praise and cherish out of veterans. So
Totally.
if he's actually willing to take 10 million off, like that's crazy, and I hope he does win a championship. And in terms of lower tier guys, like I don't mind, like a guy like Lavoy Allen. I mean
Hmm.
that's not exciting whatsoever, but I'm not even sure if he's a free agent or not. But
I think he re-signed with Indiana.
did he re-sign with Indiana?
Yeah,
Ah,
3 years, 12 million. He re-signed with Indiana.
Okay, well, I would have loved for the Raptors to give him that deal because he's kind of like a Mari Spates type, but
Hmm.
he's a good rebounder that he can shoot decently from mid range. So okay, well, I guess that's out. I don't know,
I have a few names.
trade
I
for
have
Brandon Bass.
Yeah, Bass is a little small. I had
He's a
three
bit small too,
names,
yeah.
three names that I kind of had. They're sort of dumpster diving, I guess, and
Okay,
it might require Patterson to be a starter, which he's not great defensively, but I don't hate the idea of him starting and having more shooting on the floor with the starting lineup because that's a thing that they really struggled with last year with Amir and Jonas out there. Is they only really had Terrence Ross who could hit threes consistently, and even he didn't hit them consistently. So I like the idea of a Darrell Arthur or a Jordan Hill or even a Kevin Seraphin to be sort of the backup big. behind Patterson, and then have Patterson start, and then you can start them if you're going up against a guy like, I don't know, Kevin Love. You can always switch it out and start the bigger guy to guard Love. I don't know. Obviously there's not a ton of options left on free agency right now, and the wing crop in the free agent market is just barren right now. It's like Gerald Green and KJ McDaniels, and that's about it. So
Yeah.
yeah,
I,
it's
I wouldn't mind Darrell Arthur. I kind of wanted the Raptors to acquire him last year for, as a trade deadline move to bolster the run.
mhm.
He's decent. Yeah, Kevin Seraphin, I don't know. He's got a great Instagram. I'll tell you that. It's his handle is at KS Life. That's Kevin Seraphin Life, and there's videos on there where he's like shirtless and he's on like a Segway and he's dancing, and he seems like a fun-loving guy that has a awesome hook shot that is very suspect defensively. But
Mhm.
yeah, like you said, I'll be fine as long as Raptors bring another big power forward type,
Mhm.
just to play backup. I think. But I mean, they have enough flexibility and they have enough cap room that if they want to grab a guy like Taj, like substantial, actual starting power forward, I think they have the opportunity to do so. If you scour around the league, I think there are probably some teams hoping to sell, and you can grab that. Maybe if Jason Thompson gets bought out by the Sixers, grab
Mhm.
him. So
I like and then if you're going with the trade route, I mean, I think Denver is the place to look to start.
mhm.
I don't like Kenneth Faried at all. I've never really liked his game, but Wilson Chandler and Danilo Gallinari as, wings who could also have the size to play the four. I don't mind, trying to pony up a deal to try to get one of those guys. Maybe you could include a Ross or Ridnour's cap hit there, and I don't know, maybe a James Johnson takes it with the salaries because Gallinari makes a pretty substantial amount, but I don't know. I'm interested by those two guys, and I would really like to see. I mean, I wouldn't like to see this because I like that they have this pick in their back pocket, but it'd be weird to trade that Knicks/Nuggets pick to the Nuggets. I think the universe might implode. I don't know how that would be transferred or what would happen, but I don't know. It's there are a lot of guys out there, as you said, that maybe aren't huge difference makers, but I think Gallinari and Chandler could be kind of useful.
Yeah, I like Gallinari a lot. Yeah, like you said, he can play power forward as well.
Mhm.
If you want to really make that sort of, I guess we missed that chance with Wes Matthews, but Danilo Gallinari would be almost a more ideal fit because you can actually play him at four,
Mhm.
and Carroll, sort of had them sort of split for 4 minutes. And I mean, obviously the concern with him is injury, but this is his last season on his current contract. He's earning like 11.6 mil. Yeah, and he was like straight up on fire when he got healthy towards the end of the year. Like he had like a 40-point game. Like it was
Mhm.
it was crazy. So
He's
yeah,
a really good player,
he's
and
very good. Yeah.
maybe that's the kind of situation where what happened with Lou Williams last year, where Lou had the injuries. He had a year where he was, not very effective, and then last season he was, his
Back to
best
Lou
it's ever
Williams.
been.
Yeah,
So
basically.
then who knows? Maybe it's just a couple years that Gallinari needs to get back to his level because he's a really, really good player.
Yep. I would be totally down. And I think if you trade Terrence Ross and Luke Ridnour, and I don't know what other assets you want to send out, but if you make something like that, that would be enough. Like the Raptors would be able to make that kind of acquisition by just shedding Ross and Luke Ridnour's contract. So
Yeah.
yeah, like I said, Luke Ridnour's contract expires on July 11th. So if something like that's gonna happen, we gotta make a move quick. So but also I wouldn't necessarily mind if they kept some cap room going into the season and pick some help up
Yeah.
as the season went along. Like teams break down all the time and they start selling and prices come down on guys. Like that's kind of the strategy that Houston did last year, and they made a ton of good moves, like grabbing Josh Smith on the cheap, and that worked out, and grabbing Corey Brewer on the cheap, and that worked out. So even Pablo Prigioni. So having some flexibility going into the trade deadline is not a bad idea, because last trade deadline the Raptors were inches away from paying the luxury tax because of how all the poor cap mismanagement by Brian Colangelo, and they didn't necessarily have the flexibility to add contracts and add money. So that's part of why they didn't make a move. So
Hmm.
having some flexibility is a good idea. But anyway, we're getting ahead of ourselves. Uh, and yeah, we're just gonna wrap up with the looking back portion, which is a goodbye for Amir Johnson. I mean, yeah, it really sucks having to lose Amir after 6 seasons here. He was awesome. I think everyone loves Amir Johnson. I think when he comes back, even in preseason, because I seem like the Raptors always play the Celtics in preseason. I think he'll get a standing ovation for sure, and during the regular season they're gonna have a video package put out for him. And Amir Johnson, he's a fan favorite, and he deserves it. And he gave us some great years, and we really saw his maturation from really basically like a rookie-ish, because when he came over from Detroit, like, he never played, and even though he was in the league for like 2 or 3 seasons, he was kind of like a rookie. And we saw him grow into this young veteran who had leadership qualifications, and he became more skilled and was always well rated by advanced statistics. And you can always tell by the way he played defense. And he's a selfless guy, didn't look for his own shot, always tried to help the team win. So yeah, Amir Johnson, man, I'm gonna miss you a lot, and fuck the Celtics. I hate them I hate the Celtics so much, but I'm happy that they gave you your money because you deserve it, and I hope he can, honestly, if he comes back healthy next year, hits a free agency market again, maybe the Raptors grab him. Who knows? I don't know.
Yeah, it's not crazy. I mean, yeah, the thing with Amir is like normally the Raptors have had tons of second round bigs who are super plucky and super lovable, but never really turn into anything. I mean, Quincy AC or Pops Mensah-Bonsu or all these guys who people loved, but they didn't really, have any longevity. Whereas Amir, like, yeah, he turned that second round status into actually being a legitimate starting level player and was always just there. He was always so under the radar. He was always just solid and played hard. And I don't know, it's hard to think of like a favorite Amir Johnson moment because I don't think he really has one that stands out to me, but I think that's sort of telling of what he is. He's
Hmm.
just a guy who was always there, always, had these he was just solid every night. And I think I did love watching him when he had those games where he would just go crazy in the pick and roll and he'd score like 20 and 10 and it'd be crazy and they'd win and everyone would just be, falling over themselves for Amir Johnson because he deserved those games like that. They always felt really, really earned.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, one game that comes to mind, I think, is Game 7 in last year's playoffs against the
Mhm.
Nets. He just came out on fire. He scored like 20 points, and then some horrible, horrible, truly awful officiating calls were made against Amir, including one where he got called for a loose ball foul because Darren Williams had fallen over on his own accord, and then Amir tripped over him, and they
Mhm.
called it on Amir, and that was his fifth foul, and it was like right to start the second half, and then the Raptors blew their lead, and yeah, it just, I mean, that's kind of the story of Amir Johnson's tenure here. Like, like, he was never the problem, but he wasn't good enough to put them over the top. But he tried everything in his power to do so. And yeah, he's a good soldier, and I think that he's going to be a Raptors favorite. And I kind of wish that he were going to be the first Raptors lifer. So I don't know. Do you think they retire his jersey? I mean, it's
Uh, I
possible.
don't. I don't think so. I'm of the mind that we retire too much too easily in sports anyway.
Okay.
And as much as I love Amir, and he was, he was great in the community and all that stuff too, off the court. He was never really a star, and we didn't really win anything with him. We had a couple good seasons with him as a key member of the starting five, but we never really won anything with him. I'm really looking forward to Amir Johnson bobblehead night at the ACC in the next couple years here, but I don't know if you can retire his jersey,
Yeah.
especially since he shares a number with Vince Carter. And as much as people hate Vince Carter, I think he's the one who should be the first to have his number retired.
Yeah. Like when we have the 30th Raptors 30th anniversary things, like Amir Johnson will be part of that. Like, we will
Oh
honor
yeah.
Amir Johnson, and yeah, something like that. And hope, maybe he comes back, and he loves the city. Like, he loves Toronto. He's got a place
Mhm.
here. I don't know if he'll sell it, but I don't know, 12 million. I mean, you can keep that place here in Toronto. Come out and hang out, chill with your buddy Drake. So anyway,
Where
what?
where do you think he ranks just in terms of all time Raptors bigs? Like, is he
All time
top
Raptors bigs.
five? I mean,
Yeah,
it's
maybe five's a good spot for him. I mean, he's
yeah.
he's really up there in terms of franchise, like, in terms of games played. I think he's like fourth or something, and
Yeah, I mean, you have Bosch,
blocks
obviously, and
and
Theo Davis, and then it gets pretty close after that.
Andre Bargnani, for sure.
I
Andre,
hope they sign him to a veteran minimum to be a power forward to start.
oh my God, if the Raptors sign Amir, if they sign Andre Bargnani, I might be out on the Raptors again. Um, yeah, Amir Johnson's really up there. He might even be like, yeah, I don't know. I'm not the greatest with Raptors history, just because I only started watching in like 2004 and following the team in earnest. But
Yeah.
during that time, Amir's been one of the best bigs. I would say that for sure. So,
sure.
I mean, I can only definitively say that Chris Bosh was, in terms of longevity, in terms of what he meant for the franchise, I can only say that Chris Bosh was more important as a big than to the
And
Raptors and
Pops, of
Amir.
course.
And Pop Spencer Bonsu, of
Yeah.
course. Yeah,
He's number 6.
that's right.
Yeah. So do you
Yeah.
want to see Amir come back as like a coach one day? Like, would you
Yeah.
be down for
I
that?
would
Yeah.
be down for Amir to come back in any kind of capacity. Like if he just came back and was like the MC that, part of the Raptors game ops, that would be awesome too. Just have John Amir Johnson in the Drake Sprite zone, drinking Sprite, playing Drake songs, handing out free CDs. I would love that. And you had the Raptors, whatever the Raptors logo is in 10 years shaved into the back of his head. Probably
He could
around.
always take over for the Raptor. I mean, I'm not sure his ankles would be able to handle the
No,
trampoline jumps and stuff, but
no. There's no way Amir Johnson's ankles could stand up being on roller skates going downstairs.
that is probably the only way the Raptor could be more beloved, though, is if
If it were Amir
Mr.
Johnson.
Ramiro Johnson actually was the Raptor.
Yeah, it'd be weird though because he would be we would know who he is and then he would wear a costume and pretend to be someone else even though we love him for who he is. So it'd be very weird. But yeah, I mean Amir Johnson, yeah. We love this guy and yeah, I mean I hope we give him a good tribute when he comes back. So anyway, we have rambled on for going on an hour. So
Jeez. Yeah.
yeah, I think we'll call it a day. It was a fun week and let's hope the next week is even more fun. So once again, I'd like to thank Sean for coming on the program. Sean, do you want to plug anything? I know you have a hand in like 7 or 8 different things, so just
Yeah, well, yeah, because I am just doing a lot of unpaid stuff to hopefully get paid of something one day. No, I co-host or I host a podcast, Crossover Chronicles, which is Bloguin's NBA site. I did a whole bunch of off-season previews and stuff there. We're doing a big free agency recap tomorrow. And you can also find a lot of the stuff I write over at Raptors HQ. I wrote something today about sort of the ways that the Raptors can still improve just by missing out on Wes and Aldridge. So pretty much the entire second segment was just in my column I wrote today. So you can check that out. And thanks for having me on, Will. I really love being on.
yeah, no problem. Thanks for coming on while Zarar and Andrew celebrate their real lives and stuff. All right, yeah, we'll see you guys next week.